Hey everybody, I'm Howard, and this is Otter's Retirement Corner. So today let's talk about a story released by Politico about a spending reform wish list released by Republicans. And depending on your political persuasion, this either will really piss you off or make you happy. I find that regardless of your political persuasion, if you care about people, if you care about poor people, if you care about needy people, if you care about people who struggle financially, this will piss you off, and it should. So Politico released this list from supposedly Jody Arrington. And I've talked about Jody Arrington before. He's a representative from Texas who heads the House Budget Committee. And he came up several months ago on a C-SPAN video I saw where he's talking about Social Security and Social Security reforms. And I praised him for being very open-minded and not automatically taking the Republican stance that we have to cut. He was going to, engage in discussion with the other side of the aisle and figure the best way to solve Social Security's impending trust fund depletion. And first I had heard of him or this discussion, and I praised him for it. Now I see it's maybe a little different. Trump has taken Social Security and Medicare cuts off the table. So now as they look at what kinds of things they want to cut, here is his committee's wish list. I'll attach it down there if I remember. But most of these are aimed at taking away benefits from poor people. And the idea here is this is to fund Trump's tax cuts and Border Patrol spending. So in order to stop people from crossing the border and in order to give tax cuts to, you guess, we haven't seen the tax plan, but based upon his last tax cuts, you can probably guess what this is about. He wants to take money away from people who need it the most. At least that's what this is indicating. I don't want to put thoughts or words into their mouths, but this is what we're talking about. I'm just going to go over very few, some of the bigger ones, but they're looking to save between $5.3 and $5.7 trillion over a 10-year period. So about $500 million plus per year. So there's some very interesting names to these things, the way they spin it. The first one is repeal major Biden health rules. $420 billion, but they don't give any indication of what those are or how they break that down. Then they have strengthen Medicare for seniors. And when they say strengthen, what they mean is weaken, because everything here is taking away benefits, or it's decreasing government spending. The biggest one is uncompensated care. They're going to try to cut $230 billion of spending, and again, these are all over 10 years, from that program. Everything they have here is cutting spending on Medicare. So, that's how they'll strengthen the program. Third one is making Medicaid work for the most vulnerable. So what they're saying is, okay, there's vulnerable and there's more vulnerable. We're going to get rid of the vulnerable people. We're not going to give them Medicaid anymore. So it's not that clear cut, but what they're talking about is cutting those benefits. And some of their wording here, I'd probably have to go and do some really deep dives into these and what they're talking about. But it says per capita caps up to 918 billion. Typically per capita means per person, and there's some sort of cap with the Medicaid. So they're going to cut benefits. That's all that says. So they got 918 billion out of that. Equalize Medicaid payments for able-bodied adults. And what they're talking about there is put these people to work. You can't get benefits unless you work. Unfortunately, what it means most of the time is if you're working, you no longer qualify for benefits. And that's going to save $690 billion. So we're going to throw people off of Medicaid. In essence, that's what they're saying. There's 6 others here. And then there's, the fourth column is reimagining the Affordable Care Act. reimagining. We can imagine we can cut a lot of people's insurance, is what they're saying. And I'm laughing, but it pisses me off, and it should piss you off. Again, political bent may change your feeling. Appropriate care cost sharing reduction. What they're saying, they're just, they're going to take away. If you have low earnings and you sign up for on the ACA medical exchange for insurance, they'll pay for part of your insurance. What this is saying is they'll just either pay less or not pay at all. So again, for the most vulnerable, they're going to make life more difficult. Ending cradle to grave independence. What they're saying here is, there's people who from childhood through adulthood rely on the state or the government to fund their lives. And are there examples of that? Certainly. You can find people. But what we're talking about here is people who beyond anything they did are stuck in this whirlpool of need, and they can't get out. And we can cite 100 different reasons. I'm not going to go into that. But what we're saying here is, these are all mostly food programs. So reform the Thrifty Food Plan, which is $274 billion in savings. And again, this is just a program to provide food to people who need it. Reinstate the Trump area public charge rule. Reduce TANF by 10%. What does that mean? Where do you get that 10%? You just give people 10% lower food stamp benefits. That's all this is. We're going to take away benefits from people who need it the most. All right, reversing Biden climate change policies, or climate policies. And this isn't, addressed at the poor. This is something completely different. And again, depending upon your belief, whether, climate change is real, let's not argue that. The world is heating up. That's clear. Let's not argue that. You can argue all you want about the causes or the solutions, but let's not deny climate change on this channel. It is happening. If you want to see the statistics, they're out there. It's real. Let's talk about what this is. So, they're going to discontinue the Green New Deal provisions in the 2021 infrastructure bill. The Green New Deal was something coined by AOC a long time ago, and it never passed. So they like to name anything that helps fund climate initiatives as Green New Deal, just because they know it plays well with their base. So that's $300 billion, but they don't talk about what those provisions are. And some of these, maybe Trump can do an executive order to get rid of them, but I don't think so in this case. Repeal the EV mandate, that all cars have to be electric by such and such a year. You can argue that was never going to be a realistic plan anyway. Repeal IRA green energy grants, taking away money that, incentivizes companies and people to use green energy. Don't gall me as much because they're not taking advantage of poor people, but we can argue these separately. And then under other, end the student loan bailout, 290 to 330 billion. That probably wasn't going to happen anyway. Biden is doing some of that under executive orders. It's still going to be fought out in the courts. Most of what he wanted to do wasn't getting done anyhow. That kind of failed. Restrict emergency spending to recent average, $500 billion. What's emergency spending? It's all sorts of things, but again, they don't make it clear here. And then finally, potential tax offsets, green energy tax credits. So, and they have 500 billion, 200 to 500 billion for that. And what Politico reports on some of that is even the GOP won't support it because there's green new energy deal projects going on in their districts that are doing very well for the people who live in their districts, and they're not going to vote for that. And keep in mind, most of these changes under current law would have to be done through votes of Congress and the Senate, and Democrats aren't going to support any of these, I doubt. So the chance of them getting passed are difficult. But what you have to realize is that, they can do a reconciliation bill. They can try to do a reconciliation bill, that involves budget issues, and then pass it with just a clear 50% majority in the Senate. That's my guess of what they'll try to do. They'll try to do executive orders and get around the Senate vote. So while I say none of these are going to pass, I'm not going to say anything or never about anything, because I don't know how they're going to try to get these things done. But it should make you mad, We're taking advantage of poor people. Argue all you want about we give too much to poor people, but this is not the way to fund tax cuts. It's just not the way to get it done. All right, so, that's my rant. I should be angrier and I shouldn't be laughing, but I'm just laughing out of frustration. So, give me your comments. Pour it on me. Certainly many of you are going to agree with these cuts. I get that. Tell me about it. Tell me how this makes you feel. Tell me what you think is going to get done here. Comment. Please subscribe, please share, hit the little bell notification button, and let's talk about it. Thanks, I'll see you next time. Bye.